Kamala Harris was in the same boat as my son. She was exposed to, I guess, somebody who is COVID positive. And even though she's vaccinated, she was supposed to be wearing a mask around other people. And she didn't do it because it's a stupid ass rule. And so I'm on her side not to do it, but I'm not actually on her side because she wants me to do it. She wants you to do it. She wants my son to do it, but she won't actually do it. And Jen Psaki got asked about the fact that Kamala Harris was presiding over the vote on Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she didn't wear the mask. And Jen Psaki dodged, and she felt uncomfortable, and you could see how awkward it was. It didn't go well for Jen Psaki. And she tried to suggest that Kamala Harris really was wearing the mask all day except for these one moments. And then that got proven to be a lie. But here's some of that exchange between Harris and between Psaki and Peter Doocy.
You noted that Vice President Kamala Harris is considered a close contact. CDC guidance says to wear a mask. Today she was presiding over the vote for Ketanji Brown Jackson and didn't wear a mask.
I haven't seen, I'm obviously watched most parts of the vote, but I know that she was alone up kind of on the dais for the vast majority of that.
Tomorrow during the event, or if there's any reception behind the scenes, will she be required to wear a mask indoors?
She'll follow CDC protocol.
Is there a carve out in CDC regulations for COVID for vice president? The CDC says for people exposed to COVID, up to date on their COVID-19 vaccinations, do not go to places where you are unable to wear a well-fitting mask. So why is she here at the White House today giving the new Supreme Court justice a big hug with no mask?
You mean when she gave her a hug outside?
Yes.
She was outside.
Does the CDC say the people who are close contact can give people hugs outside?
We know, Peter, that outside you can benefit significantly being outside. That's why we had the event outside today. I will tell you that the Vice President has been wearing a mask inside.
You said on Friday that the Vice President was masked indoors all day, but the White House tweeted a video showing her standing over the President without a mask on. Can you explain what happened there?
Well, I would say that the Vice President and the President and all of us abide by what the CDC protocols are. It was an emotional day. It was a historic day. And there were moments when she was not wearing a mask inside, including in a photo. But she was wearing it 99.9% of the time.
It was an emotional day, Buck. It was an emotional day. And that's a secret exception to the CDC regulations. Maybe you didn't know that.
The virus respects important occasions. There's a lot of science on that. I'm sure they could trot little Fauci out and have him tell some lies about that too. I'm just going to say this, and my record on this one speaks for itself. I told everybody 2 years ago. I mean, by early April, and I mean really 2 years ago, that the lockdowns were completely insane. Masking was absurd. All of these things that we're doing. The only thing that I felt was likely to be substantially helpful was vaccination. And so my parents got vaccinated. I actually got vaccinated against my will, basically, here in New York. And the vaccines were good in a very similar way to what they are during the flu season, which is helping people who are at risk from having a severe complication, a severe case. Didn't obviously do very much at all to stop the spread. I mean, that was a joke. So they were pretty much wrong about everything is really what I'm getting to. And I don't think it will not settle in their minds yet. The Democrat left tends to be very collectivist and it is very collectivist in its thinking. And there's so many layers of this, Megyn, that it's almost hard to get to why they're still going through this mass hysteria. Why are people in New York City walking around the streets still outside alone? Yep. With N95 masks on? Like, what do they not get at this point? What do they not understand? For some people, this is just about power and not allowing the narrative to be, we were wrong about pretty much everything, that Fauci is the most disastrous public health expert. I think you could argue in the history of the world, certainly in the history of the modern United States, that so many of the things that they told us and that the science told them were wrong, that they've lied to people. They've put people through misery. They had 4-year-olds eating lunch outside in 35-degree weather with masks on. because they're either cowards or idiots. They were doing that to little children in New York City. They're still masking up kids here in the city, which is completely inexplicable. They're masking up people on planes where they're safer than they are in almost any other congregate setting because of the filtration system on planes. It's also not a mask up policy. It's a mask up between bites policy. I try to explain this to people in the most simplistic terms, and they always go, yeah, you're right. Imagine, Megyn, if we were all trying to avoid getting poison ivy. And you're really, and imagine you could really only get poison ivy once. And you were wearing gloves and long sleeves and everything. But, when it was an important or historic occasion, you took them off and you grabbed that. You're going to, right? I mean, this notion that masking up between bites does anything is lunacy. Yes. And that's federal policy on airplanes. This idea that people in any way, shape, or form are benefiting themselves through partial lockdowns. You want to see a lockdown? Lockdown is what Shanghai's doing, which is appalling. I think Fauci sees it and says, yeah, I wish we could go that far, but not quite yet. Lockdown that only involves people not really going to restaurants as much, obviously doesn't stop the spread, doesn't do anything. They keep lying, Megyn, because otherwise, I don't think people will ever trust the health apparatus again. And I think this is to the credibility of the Democrat Party, to anybody with an IQ above that of a toaster who's not just ideologically brainwashed. This is an existential threat to the credibility of the Democrat left on health issues, on health policy, on all of it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.